Hi guys, welcome to our daily encounter. Today we read about an individual who, to some degree, shared in the sufferings of Christ. In that, he was called to bear the cross of Jesus for him. Of course, Jesus was severely beaten. He was perhaps suffering from hypovolemic shock, from a great deal of loss of blood, and therefore would have struggled to bear the cross in his weakness. And so they have this individual, Simon, who comes along and bears Jesus's cross and carries it to Golgotha. And so you have an individual who is, in a sense, shouldering the burden of the cross for Jesus. And that becomes a great picture for us and what we ought to do as well. You know, oftentimes we might limit what Jesus did on the cross as just something that he did for us. And it's something that we believe in. It's something that we remember. Of course, it's something that we appreciate. And all of those things are wonderful things and things that we should do. But we also need to remember that the cross of Jesus Christ is also something that we are to bear. In other words, we are to participate in Christ's crucifixion, not just to believe in it, not just to be aware of it, but to actually participate in it. This comes up time and time again in the New Testament, in Romans chapter 6. There, the Apostle Paul, in talking about how we should be freed from sin. We should no longer live in sin so that grace may abound, but we need to remember that we died to sin, that our old self was crucified with Christ, that we were buried with Christ in baptism, that we have been crucified with him. And then the Apostle Paul would say also in Galatians, on several occasions, he had mentioned being crucified with Christ. He talks about in chapter 2 and verse 20, I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. And then he would later say in chapter 6 that he had been crucified to the world. And then in chapter 5, he talks about those who walk according to the Spirit have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. And so time and time again, we read about believers actually participating in the crucifixion of Christ in those various ways. And so as we read about Simon, we ought to remember that we ourselves are to shoulder the burden of the cross to some degree, in that we identify with Christ in his crucifixion as he died to put an end to the effects of sin and death in our lives. So we too die to ourselves so that sin and death won't reign over us. And we commit ourselves to be crucified with him, to recognize that who we were before is now dead to us. And now we're living according to the new life that he has given us, a life according to the Spirit. And so let's remember today, let's participate in the crucifixion of Christ. Let's be with him. Let's shoulder the cross with Jesus and keep moving forward as we are making our way down the path to glory, just as he had done as well. So here's some things we can reflect on and think about as we do our reading today. With that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.